Welcome to our webinar today, Capturing the Campus, 5 video marketing tips for schools, colleges, and universities. If this is your first time participating in one of our webinars, welcome, and allow me to introduce you to Local IQ. We are a multi-channel digital marketing agency, which means we specialize in a lot of things, from SEO to PPC or pay-per-click advertising, paid social, display advertising, website design, and even video production, which is what we're going to talk about today. We are a part of the NewsQuest Media Group, which means we're able to give businesses exclusive access to a network of more than 200 trusted news brands in more than 35 locations across the UK, both in print and online. So we are the marketing agency that's near you, and we are also at the heart of all of the communities that we serve, and that's very true. Here is our agenda for today. Just 3 key things that we're going to cover today, or 3 key sections. We're going to talk about what video marketing is, just in case there are some individuals who are new to this space on our call. We're going to talk about some general tips that your school, your college, your university can use to make sure that you have an effective video marketing strategy. And then we're going to round out our session today with 5 tips to get the most out of your media day, and we'll talk about what that means. My name is Brandon Griffin. I'm the Interim Marketing Director here at Local IQ. I'll be one of the facilitators for today's conversation, but I'm especially happy to have really experts on the call. They've been with us before in some of our other webinars around video, and that's Josh Holmes and Harry Smith. Josh, Harry, thank you. And will you just maybe take a second and introduce yourselves to our audience and let them know a little bit about your backgrounds?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Josh Holmes. I'm head of digital advertising here at Local IQ. I've been in the media industry now for just over 10 years and seen very different sides to different teams and client facing, behind the scenes and whatnot. The thing I love about the industry is we're constantly striving to be the best, and we're constantly looking at new developments and new bits of technology to get our hands on. I have to admit today I have a slight bit of a cough, so apologies if I do have the old tickle, but thankfully the only person who can catch it is Harry, who sat next to me.
And I'm Harry. I am the video production manager at Local IQ. In a similar path to Josh, I've been in or around the industry for about 10 years now, so a similar sort of timeline. My role involves a lot more specifically on the video production side, so working with our video team here, working with our sales staff and our clients to develop our video strategy and train and develop our staff members. But a lot of what I also like to get involved in is the advertising and the marketing side, which I suppose is quite useful for video production, because we always think that it's all good making a video, but it's really important to also get it in front of the right people. So make a video, but also make sure that the strategy around it is effective. So that's a large part of what I'm involved in day in, day out.
Right, and I think we're going to talk about that. Making the video is half the battle, and then getting it in front of the right audience is the second part of that. So thank you for that. Again, great to have you all on today's call. A couple of housekeeping things for our webinar attendees. Number one, today's webinar is being recorded. So the webinar session, the PowerPoint slides that you'll see, you'll get that in an email in your inbox within about 24 hours. So you'll be able to replay it back at your leisure. And also, you'll be able to click through some of the resources that we're going to share that you'll see in the slides. You'll be able to click through to some of the example videos that we're going to share as well. So you can use that for reference for yourselves and for your team as you begin to move forward with implementing a video marketing strategy for your educational institution. And then also, we have a few individuals in the background who are going to be answering some of the questions along the way. So if you have questions for us, go to that questions chat area, that same area where you just introduced yourselves, and feel free to let us know what your questions are. And we'll try to answer some along the way, but we have especially set aside some time towards the end to have a Q&A segment and make sure we get some of those questions answered. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. And again, just to kind of set the tone and set a frame of reference for everyone on the call, I think this is the first question that we've got, Josh and Harry, and that is just, what is video marketing? Can you all just kind of give us a very quick description of what it is and some of the benefits that it brings to businesses in general?
Yeah, so I'd like to think everyone who's signed up for this webinar probably has a brief understanding of what video marketing is. But in a nutshell, it's using the power of video from a business or education provider point of view to get your message across to your audience. To me, it's the most exciting part of marketing. And if you read every single blog about what's the next upcoming thing next year, it's always video marketing and using video digitally. A lot of people seem to be, for want of a better word, intimidated by video marketing. But I always say to people, think about when you capture things that happen in your daily life or things that you see, or even if you're at a gig or whatever, you're so happy to open your phone up and grab a video of it. The same should be applied to your business strategy as well. We should be thinking about capturing stuff on video because we want to show people and shout about what we do. Now, there's several specific advantages, I guess, that we can pull out from video marketing. First one is really important. It's about engagement. When you think about how muddied the digital landscape is now, engagement is one of the hardest things to get and to keep from your audience. And we know that video has a really high engagement rate because once you capture someone's attention, it's very hard for them to switch off and go, you know what, I'm not going to watch it. If they're the right audience, they're going to watch it. Brand awareness, one of the best ways to gain brand awareness is to show people physically what your brand is about and who the people behind your brand are. Video is the perfect tool for this. Building trust and credibility in an age where social media is seen as this really, really strange place to be is really, really important and really hard to do. But if people, again, can see the face behind the brand and can hear you talk about why you're passionate about what you do, almost positioning yourself as a bit of an expert, you earn trust and credibility from your audience, and video is perfect for doing that. We know that there's a benefit to SEO. Google loves video. All search engines love video. If your website has got video on it, you're going to get some sort of slight boost just by including video content on there. Now, I say this a lot, it's not an exact science. However, the data does show that websites who include video content on there typically rank better for SEO reasons as well. Shareability. Everyone loves to share a video that you watch and you love it. I think back to like when COVID was a thing and we were in the middle of lockdown, we were sharing videos about our area, the things that we missed. And there was a few brands that got behind that and almost owned that viral element of it. Think about how important your network is and your community of fans and followers. Creating shareable content, super good to do, super easy to do a video. And finally, the analytics and the insights you can get. So when you post a video, it's not all about just looking at how many views it got. It's about who viewed it, how long they viewed it for, kind of what their demographics are. If you put a video up that was 7 minutes long and you saw that most people turned off after 20 seconds, to me, that's like gold dust. That can then feed your future video products. I get really obsessed with going into the analytics of videos because I'm like, it's a get out of jail free card for the next time we do it. We've got a list of boxes we can tick that we know resonate with our audience. And thankfully, there's so many different kinds of analytics and insights you can get from video production.
You're right about that. I mean, the analytics and insights in general that comes from digital advertising is phenomenal, right? Especially as opposed to what we may be familiar with when it comes to traditional. But even when you integrate digital tactics with traditional marketing too, you can get some really deep insights. And you're right, from video, I mean, you can tell how many people watch the full video, how many people make it to the first 15 or 30 seconds of the video, and then like you mentioned, those other demographics are available as well, as opposed to maybe some other means. So thank you for sharing, Josh, these general descriptions of benefits that video brings, no matter what type of business or industry you're in. The next couple of slides, I just wanted to bring it home for the marketers who are in the education space as to like the power of video. And I just want to share these two stats. The first one is that one survey found on LinkedIn was that 75% of prospective students now rely on social media platforms for information about colleges and universities. It's like that's the first place they're going for information. And if that wasn't enough, the next statistic that we came across from that same study was even more of those students acknowledged that video impacted, their choice, that final choice, and so, in this day and age, there are a lot of, I would say, influencers for this choice, people who live inside your house and people who live outside your house, and then a lot of also what these prospective students are seeing and consuming on the platforms that they're on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or just browsing the internet, and how they come across different websites. So I think those two stats, if you're trying to build a case for why your educational institution needs to invest in video or optimize your strategy or do more in that space, these two stats really make a difference. So let's talk about that as we go into this next segment. So for educational institutions that want to develop, or maybe they've started a video marketing strategy, can you all share with us, like, where do you get started when you try to get into the strategy?
Yeah, I think a large part of getting started, I mean, it's a bit like what Josh was saying a second ago. It's about not treating video as this quite daunting thing, as this different thing, as leaving it as an afterthought. It's just like any other marketing strategy. It's just a different form of content. So what would you do with any other marketing strategy that you're running? You would start by defining the objectives of that strategy. So what you would do with a video is think about what you want that video to achieve. So breaking it down, when people watch this video, what's the call to action, the main message that they are going to take away once they've finished, okay? And that can vary based on what your aims are, but also what the type of content is, so and how long it is and what platform it's on is going to affect your objectives, and vice versa. So it could be really broad. It could be just as general as increasing enrollment to the school and enhancing brand awareness, letting people know that you're there, that you're in the community, or it could be a bit more specific. It could be about boosting the alumni involvement, getting parents involved, or supporting fundraising campaigns, right down to think about if you've just invested in a new, really state-of-the-art science block or sports facilities, you might want to produce some video content to show those off. So it can be a piece of content that can be used really broad, just about brand awareness and letting people know that you're there, or you can get really specific with it and start to highlight some of those key things that you really want to focus on and bring that to life through video production.
I think just to add there as well, video is often seen as just a brand video. We need a video for our quote unquote company, whereas video marketing is using that video creative as the creative of a campaign. A video marketing strategy is not just what we're going to do for our brand video, is it? It's placing that video into a different KPI, a different element of the business that you need to increase. Really important, I think, that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I would say for marketers who are trying to get into video, maybe build up the case to get that first video done, you can always also tap into just situational and the current environment of what's happening in the space, and essentially be a little reactive, right, until you can get to that proactive space. There are a lot of things in the news now that talks about how a lot of educational institutions are going to have to raise their tuition rates because of different economic circumstances, and they're having to position themselves as to communicate like the why a parent should consider their educational institution as the choice, especially amid these rising type costs. And video is a really great way to tell that story, and that could also be a great reason and case that you can get buy-in to get that first video done. And often once you get that first video done, they'll say, well, what else do we have to talk about? And then you can tap into all these different objectives. But I think you're right, Josh and Harry, in that when you're starting out this video strategy, it's important to have a very clear focus and clear objective, because as I'm sure you talk about, when you're wanting to make sure you have that attention of that particular audience or that person who's going to be watching the video, you want to make sure that they're focused in, because the more focused they are, the more likely they are going to respond to that call to action that you're going to provide to them at the end of that video, whatever it might be. So if defining the objective is number one, then what's the next step once we tackle that?
So yeah, once you've got your objective as to what you want to achieve from that video project, the next bit, and to be fair, it's almost more important, is to think about who is going to watch it, who's the target audience. Who is going to be the person that you think this is designed for that style of person to watch this and be excited by it? And this is a really big thing, that if you just approach your business from a brand video point of view, it's very hard to make a one-size-fits-all style video. Really hard. It's doable, definitely, but when it comes to, like, segmenting it down, it's really, really important. And we always say, in particular, the education sector really has this almost this strange buyer persona, we call it, where it's made up of very different styles of people. So, for example, the obvious one is students. We know that education providers need to engage with students, and the way you engage with a student is going to be different to the way you engage with other people as well. So we've thought here, students are more likely to be to come around to the idea of Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, potentially shorter form videos on YouTube. The stuff they're going to want to see is potentially more exciting, more fast-paced, more less around the finite details, more about the whole, I've got an ignited passion now to want to go to that place. And that's very different to the next style of audience, which would be their parents. A student's parent is probably not going to be affected the same way if they look at the same TikTok that is aimed at a student. They might even be saying, what is this new trend? I don't understand. Why are we doing this dance? It doesn't work for the different audiences. So parental audience, again, Facebook, massive for that kind of 40+ market. School websites. If you think about how you would interact with, how would you find information about an education provider if you were a parent in this scenario? You'd probably Google it, and you'd probably go to that website. And then if you were positioned with a video, your chances are you're going to watch that video. The student, however, might not be actively out there looking for the website. They need to have it delivered in a different way. Likewise, YouTube comes up quite a lot, okay, because the audience who use YouTube ranges from literal 4-year-old kids right up to, I don't want to claim a number that classes as old, but older people still use YouTube as well. But the style of content you upload to there is still going to be different. It's a nice search engine for videos, but the style of your content, the length and the snappiness of it really affects who watches it. And then finally, I think we've written here influencers or key influencers. And what we mean by that really is the people who have got the ear of the student, the people who are going to be involved in that decision. Extended family members, that sounds much more logical. The people who are there to say, have you looked at this place? I've seen this place. And they might be affected by completely different ways. They may even, and we don't speak about print that much, they may even be affected by a print advert.
Yeah.
They may even want to scan a QR code on a leaflet to view a video, and that could be their route to market. Newsletters, the kind of longer form content that they've got time to sit and digest, is perfect for them. But think back to the first point. If we showed the TikTok from the student to the extended family member, it is a waste of time. It's not going to work. So the education sector is one that really gets us thinking when we approach projects, because the audience is so segmented and requires such a different approach. There are ways around that, but if we were to look at all the sectors we work with, this is the one where it's one size fits all does not apply.
No, definitely.
It really doesn't.
Good one there. And then I think we've got this resource as well on our website. Put this on because you talked a lot about the buyer personas. This is a really helpful resource that puts just everything that you just said into practice. So once you understand that you've got these different segments of audience that need to be connected with, you can use this template to understand, okay, well, what's important to them and what's our unique selling proposition when it comes to that particular audience, whether it's a student, the parent, that extended family member or other key influencers. So again, our audience will have the opportunity to click through this once they receive this slide deck. And then also, I want to bring you to this slide because this is a real good cheat sheet here. There we go. Yeah, this is a cheat sheet that I think is helpful as well, right, Harry? Right, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there. There's a lot of numbers and technical information, but as Josh says, there's different platforms that are effective for different audiences. So once you've thought about which of these platforms you're going to use, you might use one of them or a few of them or all of them, then you really need to optimize the content that you're creating on the media day that you do, on your shoot day. You need to optimize that content for each of these platforms. Now, when you're not too familiar with this stuff, looking at all of that and all the different numbers and lengths and resolutions and all of that, it can be quite daunting to just start to dip a toe into it and get started. I know there is a blog on the Local IQ website right now about repurposing video content, because it is really important, as we've said, and we'll say it a million times, I'm sure, as we do this, creating that 1 minute long brand video that's landscape, that sits on YouTube. Just plonking that straight onto TikTok is not going to be as effective as actually optimizing a different type of content for TikTok or for Instagram or for Snapchat or whatever it might be.
That makes sense. And so thinking about your audience, thinking about how you may want to repurpose it, all of these things are things that you want to be thinking about as you go into your media day for your educational institution, which we're going to break down in just a moment. But as you go into a media day, you know, the next thing that you're going to be thinking about, well, who's going to be capturing all of this video content? And I think your third tip for how to have an effective video marketing strategy is to think about, you know, who's going to help you put it all together. And so I think that takes us to this third point that we bring out, which is, you know, you want to work with, if you can, a professional video team, and how sometimes it may be a lower barrier to entry in terms of working with the professional team than you might actually think. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Josh, here?
Look, would it be a company webinar if we didn't try and push our own team as well? Like, we're very proud of what we've achieved over the past probably 4.5 years now. And when we set out to build a video production team, we tried to remove the grit around what people associated with video production. And when people think about that, they think about big disruption in their business, lots and lots of people walking around. We always use the term catering van sat in the side, being a nuisance. However, a professional video team, they've got the benefit of they've had this experience before, and they've worked with numerous different styles of clients on numerous different styles of budgets. The team we have, for want of a better word, are quite young, so they're framed in the mindset of understanding engagement and understanding what grabs people's attention. What we like to do is something called a media day, which Brandon's just referenced there, but I think Harry might go into a bit more detail now about a media day. And if you would like a quote for video production, completely not held to it at all, just if you want to chat with us, there is a button on there to book a free consultation with us.
Absolutely, yeah. And when we say we use the word media day a lot, that is essentially just whether it is a video team that you're using or whether you are tackling the project yourself. A media day is essentially just the day when you are going to capture all of that content. It's really helpful, especially when you are working with an external video team, to assign a day or 2 days, however long it's going to take, to capture all of that content. There are things that you can be reactive to, and there are events and things like that, but ultimately you want to be able to assign 2 days or whatever it is in the calendar to go, right, all of the content we want to capture for the video that we've thought of, for the piece of content we're going to create, for the target audience we have, we're going to capture it all on these days. And I think what I want to talk about a little bit next as well is a few tips on actually getting the most out of your media day. Again, relevant for whether it is you producing the content yourselves or whether it is an external video team that you're producing. So the first tip and the first point is, it sounds really basic. It almost sounds too simple. Obviously, you would think of this, but it's really important to plan your shots in advance. So that's when we talk about planning a media day and getting that in the diary and getting it in advance, thinking about what you need. I think essentially it's about creating a shot list, which sounds a little bit terrifying at first, but what we're not talking about is a 100-page document of every single shot and exactly what it's going to look like and storyboards and all that stuff. It might be as simple as just almost reverse engineering, right? We want the end product to look like this, so we need shots of X, Y, Z. We always tell people to essentially think of the must-haves. Yeah. So think of all the must-haves that you would want if you were to see your video on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever it is. What would you want to see in there? And you can essentially reverse engineer a shot list through thinking of it that way.
And sometimes that can be something extremely minor, can't it?
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
It could be a specific corridor in the school that someone might not be aware is really important. But unless you write that down, the chances are when you're actually filming with a team or yourself, you might forget about it. And it's very vital that you plan this day and get everything you need.
We, you know, when we're working with our clients, whether it's a school or any other type of business, you know, we hear things all the time of, oh, we want to capture this. We probably would have never thought of it in a million years. So it's really important to think of those things that are important to you. Again, something like a corridor or a staircase, it sounds like silly, but that is a really good example as the sort of things where, think about when people come into the school, what are the areas where they go, oh, I love that, oh, that's great, the things that people mention, and include that in your shot list. But it's important then, you've got this big shot list, how do we actually go about capturing it all? Schedule the day. The good thing with a school is it's a little bit easier because every school has a timetable in place already. So if you want to capture the science classroom, that's happening at this time. If you want to capture the art classroom, that's happening at this time. So schedule the day, put all those shots in the shot list in the right place, and then yourself or your video team can work through them. And while you're doing that, that gives you a good idea of planning the locations that you're going to use as well. So think about where you're going to capture all of those above shots. And again, just like we've been saying, those locations that somebody like myself coming in might not even think of. We think of typically, yes, the outside of the school and the classrooms and the drone shots, but think about those specific areas like a really nice corridor where the light's coming in or whatever it might be.
Those things are really important. Oh, sorry. I was just, no, all those things are really important because, you know, when a prospective student watches the video one time, you know, you want them, once they come to your actual campus, to feel like they've already been, they've been there.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So those corridors and those rooms that are really important, you know, do make a difference in making sure you try to include them, right? And then because the videos are only, what, 30 seconds, a minute long or so, you know, how you creatively incorporate all of those elements in such a short time span can really take some unique skill and talent as well. So no, thanks for sharing that. The second tip you mentioned, or that we talked about including, that was really important, is capturing a wide range of content. What are some things that, you know, we should know here?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've talked about the shot list, but I think it's important when we talk about a wide range of content is almost not to have tunnel vision, not to think just too linear about it. Diversify your footage. Schools are a really diverse environment, whether it's how many different types of, you know, classes you've got on the curriculum or the different types of students or the age range, you know. It's about making sure that your video is as diverse as your school is. So making sure that you get everything in there. Yes, thinking of a shot list is one thing, and you can think of all those nice shots that you want to get, but how do you actually capture a range of locations, a diverse selection of people, and be really inclusive with the content you're getting to make sure that the parents and the students and everybody that's involved in your school on a day-to-day basis is represented in some way, so it feels like a fair representation of your school. And I think that helps you then to consider your audience. I think the audience thing, like we said at the start, points 1 and 2 about, you know, what is the objective and what is the audience, they almost overlap in a way. You're always thinking about those two things at the same time. So when you're considering your audience, you're going to be thinking about the type of content that you're going to be capturing. That might be that those 3 kind of buyer personas that we talked about, you might be targeting all 3 of those. So you need different types of content for each of those audiences. So on this media day, you might be thinking at the same time we're capturing the big cinematic brand video that's going to go on the website, we also need to be capturing the fun content that's going to go on TikTok. So you can start to attack all of those things at the same time on that media day. And you're also going to focus on different perspectives. So it's a bit similar about diversifying the footage and diversifying the kind of locations that we're going to capture. But ultimately, it's about, especially if you are shooting the video yourself, making sure that you're getting different close-ups and wide shots, making sure you get the wide shot of the outside of the building, but then also getting close up to students' faces and see their emotion and see them, you know, big beaming smiles and having a great time. That's what it's all about. If you're doing interviews, for example, don't plan to do everything in one room. Mix it up, get different perspectives, get different angles. And as Brandon was saying, it almost then kind of acts as a walkthrough in a certain sense, without literally being a linear walkthrough. Here's the front door, here's where we go next. It almost just gives students and parents, before they even get through the front door, this idea that they've already been there before and they've seen what the school is all about.
That makes sense. And I was going to mention earlier too, I really do like the concept of the marketing day, the media day, because managing social, one, we have a lot of marketing managers on the call. And so when it comes to, you know, social media, social content, you know, that's a full-time job in and of itself. And then to create the content, that can be as well. So I really like the concept of, you know, just taking a dedicated 1 day, 2 days to try to capture as much video as you can. And then, you know, on the end, we're going to talk about post-production and such, and then you're able to edit it, and you have enough content to schedule out for a month, 2 months or so. And then some of these videos, if you do them, in the correct way, can be evergreen. Record them once, and they can have a really long shelf life and work for your educational institution. And then I think the third one is making sure that this is the one, because you don't want to do a video and invest in a whole lot and then you leave someone out, right? And so I think that's third tip of making sure that you involve key figures for authenticity and for leadership is really important as well.
Yeah, I think when you're involving key figures, I mean, there's going to be different types of content. Some might involve people, speaking on camera, some might not. But whichever way you're kind of going about producing that content, I think it is really important in some factor, even if it's just footage of them or whether it is them speaking, to involve key figures. And it's really important to feature a mix of voices for one. So we've talked about diversity a lot. It really can't be mentioned enough when we're talking about education providers, especially. And it's along the same lines as keeping it diverse, but make sure your speakers and the people that are actually in the video, if they're speaking or if they're just featured, are as diverse as the footage is. So it's one thing to get shots of all of these different classrooms, but also get a diverse mix of speakers in there. Make sure you prep those participants as well. So have a good think. Those people that are going to be in the video, are they scripted? Are they just being asked questions? Are they just being featured? Prep them in some way so they know what to expect and you can hit the ground running on the day when you get started.
Cool, good deal. And we've got videos along the way that individuals can click through once you get the slides. They're also available on our website as well. You can see examples of these different scenarios that we're talking about that we've done for educational institutions across the UK, including one that's going to be featured on this screen here that we did for Bradford Grammar School. And also, I think this is the fourth tip that we have to get the most out of your media day, Harry, which is to keep your messaging consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all well and good capturing all of that content, but you need to make sure it aligns with your brand ultimately. So that might be as simple as, the fonts and colors and logos that you have, but also the tone of voice that's used. So use a style guide. You as a school, every school is a little bit different. You might be very formal and more academic and see yourself as a more professional institution, or you might be aimed more at, you might be a primary school and you're aimed more at fun and being a bit more carefree and a bit more informal and a bit more off the wall. So make sure that, especially if you're working with a video team, they've got that style guide. They know what your brand is, what to expect, and they make sure that the final product aligns with your overall branding.
Thanks. And you mentioned this, especially if you're working with a video team. And so I think your fifth and final tip is around that. So if you're working with a video team and a partner, what are some things that we should know there?
Yeah, it's about collaborating closely. I think ultimately it's about sharing the vision, right? So we always say that at the end of the day, it's your school, right? It's your college, it's your university. Until we actually meet you and until we're actually there on the day, we don't know what the brand is. We don't know what you're all about. We can look at the website and we do that due diligence, but it only tells us half the story. So share your vision, make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all aiming for the same piece of content at the end of the day. And also collaborating closely with the video team leads into what Brandon was kind of teasing at, which is the post-production element, which is what we mentioned about optimizing it for multiple platforms. So that video team you're working with, they might not exactly be aware what your platforms are. They might not know that TikTok is the focus for you, or the school website is the focus for you, or YouTube, or whatever it might be. So make sure that you share the vision on that with them as well, so they know exactly what type of content to produce and they can make sure it's optimized for that platform that you're using.
Cool, good tips there, Harry. Thanks for taking us through that. I also want to let everyone know. So again, if you have questions specific to, the marketing strategy, the video marketing strategy that you're trying to implement at your college, your school, your university, feel free to go to the questions area because we're going to move to our Q&A segment in just a moment. And we'll make sure that we get some of your questions answered. But before then, Josh, if you could just take us through, because we just talked about, the 5 tips to get the most out of the media day. But just across the board, in this next section, if you could just tell us, no matter where we are on the journey, if we're trying to do a video, just what are the best practices that we should follow very quickly as like a fire rapid round?
a few things we've learned. Number one, keep videos concise. A good way to test is if you do something for social media, give that video to someone before it goes live and watch them. And the minute they look away from the screen or the minute they start doing something else, think, why did that happen? What made them do that? And can I cut that down? Be very brutal with social media content. Keep your messaging very clear. Think about if someone watches a video, what are the 3 things you want them to take away from it? What do you want them to come off and go, oh, did you pick up on this? If they're not clear enough in the video, then something's not particularly right. It needs to work really hard for you. And tell a story. Anything from 15 seconds to 15 minutes long will have a story behind the scenes. We tell stories when we speak. If your video doesn't particularly have one, or it doesn't really sit alongside a story, then that's a sign to go back to the drawing board and think, hang on, what is the story here?
Infuse brand elements, we talked about the colors, the logos, the fonts. Every school has got those, so make sure they're in the video as well. It's a visual piece of content, so it's important that that's represented. It sounds really basic, but obviously opt for high quality visuals and audio. What we mean by that is you want this video to be the best possible representation of your school. So that means you want crystal clear audio and lovely cinematic visuals. It's really important to make sure that's right, so people don't click away and they stick with it. Think about people with hearing impairments as well, but even beyond that, how many times do all of us, ourselves included, watch a video on mute because you're on the train or you're walking down the street, whatever it is? So include captions for those people so that they are included and they can watch the video. And finally, a compelling call to action. We said at the start, and it's just as important now, what are people taking away from this? Whether it's the final line of the video or a bit of text that comes up at the end, what is the final call to action when that video ends that you want to stick with people?
Cool. Thanks for that, Josh and Harry. And for our audience, again, this is just a quick wrap up, and thank you for some of the questions that are coming through. We're going to move to our Q&A in our last 5 minutes here that we have on the call. But before we go into that, Josh, Harry, thank you for taking us through that. So we've gone through what video marketing is, and we've understood the benefits that implementing a video marketing strategy can have for our business, our educational institutions. We've talked about the tips for implementing an effective video marketing strategy, and how we can get the most out of our media days, no matter who's recording the videos, right? But then you've also shared some good tips for if we're working with a video production team, what we should look out for and how we can make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of the vision for it, as well as how we want to use the videos and for who we want to use the videos for, in terms of audiences and platforms as well. You want to think about those things going in to make sure that we've covered all of our bases. So that's really good. And the other thing that we covered, again, I want to reiterate it. I mean, shameless plug, but it is very true. Just because you've got a group of 3 to 5 individuals coming out to your school, I think when you talk about budget, you may think it could be very, very expensive, but it may not be. But the only way is if you do reach out and talk about your unique scenario for your educational institution and get a quote, get an estimate to see what that would be like for your school, and you may be surprised. Josh, Harry, if you'll just stick around for a couple of moments, I've got a couple of questions that have come through, and I'm going to put this link in the chat as well for individuals who want to take the conversation forward further. You can go to our chat there and see it. One of the first questions that came through, Josh, Harry, is what is the best option to host or play videos on your website that isn't linked to the video having to be hosted on YouTube, right? Because we know sometimes there are firewalls involved in school websites and internets. And so how do we get our website to play on our video to play on our website without having to use YouTube? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I'm imagining that YouTube is likely the thing that's the issue there. I know that a lot of school, the internet, a lot of schools will block YouTube for understandable reasons. So it's quite difficult to have your content hosted on there. A good alternative, and it's the platform that we use as well, is Vimeo. If you've heard of it or if you haven't, it's essentially just a professional version of YouTube. There is a free membership to Vimeo as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to cost you anything to use it. But that is a good alternative third-party app that is basically the same as YouTube. And when I say professional, I mean there's no recommended videos along the side, there's no ads, there's none of that stuff. So that's probably a good alternative. I would say that if using a third-party app at all is the issue, so Vimeo is not an option either, then that's another way where if you are using a video team or a video provider, to collaborate closely, I would say to a lot of clients, probably have us in some brief conversation with your web team or whichever agency designs your website, because there might be a way that we can deliver the file, a very small file size or a specific resolution, where it can be contained directly on the website without having to embed through video or YouTube. But it can be a bit of a minefield, but usually there is a way around it, whichever way it is.
Good to know. Very important too, because you don't want to add that big video file to your school website and then it slows your website down, because then it's going to have the opposite effect of what you want to happen in terms of website speed, SEO, and then just engagement, because people will bounce from your website in that section because it's taking too long to load. So you don't want to have the opposite effect. And then we also had a couple of questions that came through as it relates to video production. So there are some individuals who want to DIY, do some things themselves. And so when it comes to just easy, quick video production, video editing software, are there any quick, easy, affordable tools that you would recommend for people who are just getting started and experimenting with this space?
Okay, yeah. There's definitely options. I think I always it sounds a little bit cheesy when you say it, but I think a lot of the times the best app to use is just whichever one is in front of you. And I think it's easy to get, I don't know, how would you say, it's almost easy to get tied up with trying to think, right, what's the most professional, software I can use? But in reality, if you are trying to do it yourself, the best thing is just to get started, whichever way it is. So I don't know if Windows Movie Maker still exists, but genuinely, iMovie, yeah, if you've got an iPhone or an iPad or an iMac, it just comes included. So that will just be there. And that is essentially the MacBook equivalent or iPhone equivalent of something like Windows Movie Maker. And even saying Windows Movie Maker, I'm pretty sure it is still available. It's not a joke. It's genuinely just a basic tool to cut videos together. So I think that genuinely is an option.
iPads or phones,
CapCut, yeah, that you'll see that if you use TikTok, you'll see CapCut being used a lot. We'll have, I think a lot of these platforms will watermark things at the end with like a CapCut logo, but I think
you could clip it out.
It's pretty.
I wouldn't recommend that. Clip it out.
It's pretty easy to clip that out and would be an option. And then I think once you start stepping up from that, you get into not only if you want to avoid or you've got a limited budget paying for software. It's also like, as much as there are free software, like there's a software called Adobe Premiere Rush, that's free and very, very good. But then you start to get into the minefield of like, you will need a decent computer to run that, I believe. So that's also another thing. So I think it's always worth thinking first of like, am I shooting this on an iPhone? Has it literally got iMovie installed? That could be the first point, or something like CapCut or whatever it might be. That's probably the starting point, and then you can kind of build up as you go from there.
I agree with that. Just get started, and a lot of the tools that are available, if you just open your computer and type in video editor, you'll see some of the tools that are available, and they do try to make them as user-friendly as possible. So that's cool. One other last question that we've got through from Alex, who's been really engaged in the chat. How important are cinema-style narrative storytelling videos when it comes to educational institutions? So cinema style and other styles, I mean, how important is that for schools to consider?
That is a great question, right? And the sad cynic in me wants to say they're not important, but they kind of are. It's almost like when you think about video, if you think about the big TV John Lewis Christmas style advert, and you can make something of that style, and you've got the power to buy the media space to get that seen, then it's worth it. But if you haven't got the budget for that, you haven't got the days of planning, the production team, the actors and whatnot, it's like, do you want to attempt to do something like that and do it at about 75%? Probably not, because it'll be a negative for you. So why not build video in a normal way and maybe have that as the end goal? That could be like, in 3 years' time, we want to get to a point where we're getting cinematic style videos out, we're working on this script and we're going to do it. You need to do the baby steps first. If you want the cinematic video, though, we can definitely help with that 100%. Open up for a chat for that.
Well, that's cool. It looks like you've got some pretty scalable type solutions available, no matter where an educational institution may be on their journey or in terms of resources available. So again, I want to encourage everyone to just reach out, ask the questions, start a conversation. Someone mentioned in the chat, Canva is a good tool as well. You're right. So thank you for that. Thank you everybody for taking the time out today to join us in today's webinar. And Josh, Harry, a special thanks to you all for sharing your knowledge and expertise. You all have worked on a lot of educational institution type videos. I tried to highlight several of them throughout the presentation today, but you all have more examples available on the website. So I encourage everyone to go out and check those out. In addition to other webinars that we have available too, that are free, that are on demand, that cover all other aspects as well in terms of digital advertising that you may find helpful. So until next time, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you on another Local IQ webinar. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers.